Board of Supervisors meeting, recorded April 19, 2022.
It is 5 p.m., so I will call this meeting to order. There are 25 present, all in person for probably the first time in 2 years, so excellent. We will stand, pledge to the flag. Please stay standing for invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Supervisor Rakowski with the invocation.
Let us pray. As this new county board gathers this evening, help us to learn and grow as leaders, and that we give our best efforts as representatives of the people of Portage County. As we soon will have our new committee assignments and debate many topics, help us to find ways to find common ground. Keep safe our highway workers as they begin road construction season, and keep safe our farmers as they start planting season, and grant that they have a productive, growing year. We ask this in your name. Amen. Amen.
And then we'll go on to certificates of appreciation for former supervisors. First being Supervisor District 3, Melissa Johnson, for 6 years of service.
Louder. Sorry.
Okay. Former Supervisor District 6, Mildred Neville, for 4 years of service. Former Supervisor District 9, Nhace Chai Mua, for 4 years of service. Former Supervisor District 16, Daniel Martinson, for 4 years of service. Former Supervisor Dennis Robbie, for 4 years of service. Former Supervisor District 20, Charles Gussel, for 7 years of service. Former Supervisor District 24, Jerry Zastrow, for 6 years of service. And former Supervisor District 25, Ray Reeser, for 2 years of service. All right. Next, we can then move on to the oaths of office. First will be the county executive. I will meet you down front to administer the oath. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, John Pavelski,
Who have been elected
to
to the office of county boards, or to the office of county executive
the office of county executive
in and for the county of Portage,
in and for the county of Portage
in said county,
and
in said county,
in said county,
but not yet entered upon
but not yet entered upon
the duties thereof, swear or affirm that I will support
swear or affirm that I will support
the Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge
I will faithfully discharge
the duties of said office
the duties of said office
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Excellent. Now, if I could ask the supervisors to please rise. Please raise your right hands and repeat after me. I state your name.
I,
Who have been elected to the office of county board supervisor
To the office of county board supervisor
in and for the county of Portage,
in for the county of Portage,
in said county, but have not yet entered upon
not yet entered upon
the duties thereof,
the duties thereof,
swear or affirm that I will support
swear or I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin.
and will faithfully discharge
I will faithfully discharge
the duties of said office
the duties of said office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Excellent. If you could please sign your oath and then pass it to the middle, I will come down the aisle to collect those.
I don't know. Today. Correspondence. We had the county supervisor listing, the county board reorganization information memo, committee appointment preference form. If you have not already, please plan to turn those in by the end of the meeting. The voting for procedures for the election of officers, and I will go over those here again in a moment. The invocation schedule for returning supervisors, that's a new thing, but there will be a set schedule for invocation. If you are unable to do it at your designated meeting, please plan to contact the county clerk's office well in advance so we can arrange an alternative for you. Next then was the Wisconsin Counties Association welcome packet with all of those items included. That was that big envelope for you. And then finally the 2022 WCA district meeting. Next then we'll move into the election of officers. So for each position that will be voted on will be done so individually in the order of chair, first vice chair, second vice chair, fourth executive ops committee member, and fifth executive ops committee member. To start, I will call for nominations for chair. Nominations do not require a second, but no supervisor may nominate more than one individual for any given position. I will continue to call for nominations until there is no response for 3 consecutive calls. I will then declare that the nominations for the chair are closed. No motion from the floor is necessary. Any nominated individual will then be given a chance to make a brief statement. Then any other supervisor can make a brief statement following that. If there's only one supervisor nominated, there may be a motion and a second to cast a voice vote and seat said supervisor as the county board chair for the first voting. If there is more than one nominated individual, voting will then take place by secret unsigned ballot. Those are the yellow slips of paper that are at your desk. County staff, including corporation counsel and finance director, will collect and count the ballots. No absentee voting by proxy is permitted, but we're all here, so excellent. We're all here in person. So a majority vote of the supervisors here in attendance is required to be seated in any position. So tonight that will be 13. So in the instance that there's 3, the winner still needs to get 13, not just the most votes on that first voting. A majority balloting will then continue for all nominating individuals until one such individual receives the required number of votes. An individual may withdraw from consideration at any time. Once that supervisor receives a majority vote, there will be a motion and a second to seat the supervisor as chair in this first case of voting. Once the chair is elected, they will assume the duties from me, the Chief Deputy County Clerk, and repeat the above process for each of the additional positions. If you'd like to be recognized, please raise your hand, and I'll give an opportunity for anyone, if they want to raise their hand and ask any questions now, to clarify the nomination or voting procedures. Seeing none, I will then open the floor for nominations for County Board Chair. Supervisor Rakowski.
I would like to nominate Supervisor Al Haga for County Board Chair. Supervisor Haga brings over 20 years of experience to the board, including chairing many committees through the years. Supervisor Haga has served as the county chair for the past 4 years and has been instrumental in helping the board navigate through the past 2 years of COVID-19. Supervisor Haga has a good working relationship with the county departments, directors, and staff. As we move forward with a new county executive and a new county clerk, having someone with experience in this role is a huge asset. Please join me in supporting Supervisor Al Haga for County Board Chair.
Are there any other nominations for County Board Chair? Are there any other nominations for County Board Chair? Are there any other nominations for County Board Chair? With that, then, I will close nominations for County Board Chair and would entertain a motion. Supervisor Matt Jakowski.
Thank you. I would so move that we cast a unanimous ballot for Al Haga for County Board Chair.
Second by Pataki. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We will seat County Supervisor Haga as County Board Chair. Congratulations.
Is my mic on?
Should be.
I want to thank everybody. Thank Supervisor Rakowski. As he said, I've been doing this for 20 years. This is still a humbling experience. I got goosebumps on the way up here. I want to thank everybody for their votes. I'd like to thank everyone for their vote of confidence. I personally like to thank each one of you for signing up and winning an election as County Board Supervisor. It's not an easy thing to do, and fewer people are willing to raise their hand and be in the spotlight. This board will have some challenging decisions to make through the next 2 years. COVID-19 will continue to be a constant thorn as it lingers. Construction of a new Portage County Healthcare Center after the referendum. The Jail and Justice Center has not gone away because the Healthcare Center was passed. We've got safe, clean drinking water, as well as an ever-tightening budget. I have asked in the past that if or when we disagree on topics, that we do it respectfully manner. And I look forward to working with all the new supervisors along with the ones that have been here as long as I have, if not longer. So, thank you. Next item we have is the first vice chair. I will take nominations for the first vice chair. Supervisor Gifford.
Yeah, Supervisor Moresi for the first vice chair.
Thank you. Any other nominations for the first vice chair? Supervisor Barry Jakowski.
I'll pass it this time.
Do I have any other nominations? Supervisor Pataki.
I would like to nominate Larry Rakowski for first vice.
Are there any other nominations for the first vice chair? Are there other nominations? Supervisor Moresi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would actually like to withdraw my nomination for first vice chair. I think Larry has been doing an exceptional job, and I will be supporting his nomination. Thank you very much.
All right, Supervisor Moresi is withdrawn. So right now we have one nomination for Supervisor Larry Rakowski for the First Vice Chair. I will start again. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? I will take a motion to close the nominations and cast the unanimous vote for Supervisor Rakowski as the first Vice Chair. Motion by Supervisor Matt Jakowski, seconded by Supervisor Moresi. All those in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Supervisor Rakowski, you can make a statement and move to your chair.
I had something written up, so I just will read this off. Fellow supervisors, growing up on a family farm, maybe I didn't realize it at the time, but my parents installed a very strong work ethic in their children. I believe that those days have made a large impact on my life. It may have been not leaving till the work was done, learning to problem solve, or how to work with each other every day. I believe these skills still hold true today for my time on the county board. As the first vice chair, my responsibilities are to be ready to serve as the county board chair in their absence. I believe my time serving on many committees through the years and chairing the HR and planning and zoning committees this past term and having a solid working relationship with the county board chair is important as well. I look forward to working with each and every one of you in the next 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Number 14, I will take nominations for the second vice chair. Supervisor Honnold.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Supervisor Vincent Moresi, District 1, to the Executive Operations Committee for the second vice chair. There's 4 reasons that I believe Supervisor Moresi should be reelected to this committee, which he's been on for the last 2 years. One is his environmental record. Second, his overall contribution to the betterment of our community. 3, his respect for democratic principles. And 4, he has personal traits that we value on this board. His environmental record, Supervisor Moresi is a tireless advocate for Portage County to implement solar electric generation on all appropriate buildings, thus transitioning to a clean energy future and mitigating climate change. He's chaired the Solid Waste Committee for the past 2 years. And as a member of that committee, I have observed Supervisor Moresi always being prepared to lead a knowledgeable and forward-thinking discussion on the agenda items. He works tirelessly with state legislators, scientists, farmers, and advocates for solutions to our groundwater contamination crisis, supporting the clean water referendum on the April 2021 ballot. Secondly, his contributions overall to the betterment of our community. Supervisor Moresi was a consistent advocate for the healthcare referendum, both in 2018 and successfully in 2022. He understands that citizens want their loved ones close to home. As co-creator of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, he wants to assure that our county is a welcoming and safe place for all citizens. And as an advisory member to the Arts Wisconsin, he works to promote Wisconsin's creative economy to power innovation in the trades and entrepreneurship. Number 3, his respect for democratic principles. This is evidenced by his championing nonpartisan redistricting reform in 2018 and promoting the Fair Maps referendum in 2022. His current attendance at UW Extension's Local Government Leadership Academy to refine his leadership skills is further evidence of his desire to be an effective voice for fairness and justice in our community. And finally, personal traits. As many of us in this room know, there is no place for Lone Rangers on this board. Serving with Supervisor Moresi on committees and observing him as a member of the Executive Operations Committee the past 2 years, this is what I've seen. He listens. He does his homework. He can soundly justify his positions from a scientifically sound perspective. He's willing to change his mind if persuaded. He's willing to stand up for an unpopular belief if he believes it's right. He collaborates and he compromises. Those are the 4 reasons that I believe he should be elected to the Executive Operations Committee. Oh, wait, there's 2 more. Supervisor Moresi has a vested interest in the quality of life in our county because that would be his 2 young daughters who he would like to raise here in a healthy and safe community. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other nominations? Supervisor Pataki.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate Supervisor Don Jankowski of District 13 for second vice chair. And so I don't miss any of his qualifications, which he had many of. I will let him speak for himself.
Supervisor Jankowski.
Been on this board for 27 years. I was appointed to a position and elected since that point. I have experience in law enforcement, have experience in safety consulting with Century Insurance. I was put on early retirement in '99, and I've got plenty of time to do this work. I've served on space and properties. I've served on public safety. I did serve on the library board and also on human resources at one time. So I do feel I've got a diversified knowledge of what is happening in this county. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Do I need to close it for the vote?
Supervisor Hager.
Motion to close it?
Or Chair Hager. Close it.
Okay. Supervisor Moresi.
May I just speak on my own behalf?
Sure, you may.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Supervisor Honnell. That was very humbling and very kind. Much gratitude to you. Thank you for that. So, I'm the young pup around here. And people are probably wondering what I could possibly bring to the table that you all don't already know. Because I look to all of you as mentors. For the past 5 years, I've been on this board learning from all of you how this works, how civic engagement works, how civil engagement works. And I'm proud to say that I wouldn't have it any other way, because this has been an eye-opening experience working with an incredibly gracious group of people that have really taken myself and other new supervisors under their wing to teach them a good way to govern. My focus is to bring a multi-generational aspect to leadership. I believe we need representation that reflects who we are as a community. I actually represent the next generation of leaders who are stepping up for our children and our communities. I know this means borrowing from the future generations, and my goal is to understand how today's decision will affect us in the future. Foresight is a key leadership trait that I possess. I still believe that I come with, even though I've been here for 5 years, I still believe I come with fresh ideas and a vision and the know-how to create alliances on a local and regional level to ensure the interests of Portage County are well represented. I'm an authentically independent champion of the residents of Portage County, which is exactly what this office entails. I know how to bring all parties to the table, which I did 4 years ago when I brought farmers and advocates and local leaders together for what I dubbed as the Beer Summit. And many of these people had not sat at the same table or even spoken to each other for many, many, many years. And by the end of the meeting, they were pouring each other glasses of locally brewed beer and actually chuckling and laughing with each other. It was really a fun thing. The executive committee, I believe, needs a representative who resides in the city, and especially a representative who stands for both urban and rural interest and who can bridge the divide and generate consensus. and that candidate is me. I grew up in the country working on farms and hunting and fishing out in the country my whole life. And I had to make the compromise to live in the city with my better half. So I reside here, but my heart is in the country, and I know what it means to live and to have rural culture. It runs through my blood. Clearly, I know how to get things done. I've been involved in all the referenda on the ballot since 2017. In some way, I have touched them or supported them or brought them to the table. I've authored multiple resolutions. Also, I believe I have a unique perspective and a vast worldview. I literally have traveled all over the world and understand how unique Portage County is and how it's woven into the fabric of industry, agriculture, economics, ecology, culture, and how this makes us uniquely positioned for a prosperous future. I really hope you can support me in this endeavor to work again on the Executive Operations Committee. I feel like we've done a really great job the past 2 years in having difficult discussions and finding salient resolution for all of us to move forward. So thank you for the consideration.
So we have called the nominations 3 times, and now we are going to vote. So you have a yellow slip of paper in front of you. We have Supervisor Moresi and Supervisor Jankowski that are running for the second vice chair. Please pass your ballots. Or
spelling count. The spelling count.
Just like a church. Who's making change?
Last year when we did this, because of COVID, we had a poll like they used to use in church within the basket. And I think it was Supervisor Robbie put $1 in there. We still have the $1.
It's hanging in the clerk's office.
Under $1.99, you can take it.
Yeah.
Hey, budgets are tight. Maybe we should take a collection every.
You can't legally, there's no one else.
Yeah.
That's from a city. Everybody's out.
Yeah, just in case anybody doesn't know, our county clerk has resigned and went back home, and now we have the deputy clerk is taking on those roles and responsibilities. So there's usually the deputy clerk in the front running the computer and dealing with the things at home and doing all the things that Lee's doing now. And then the county clerk sits up here in the front that helps with the votes and helps the county board chair keep the meeting under control. And Lee is doing both today, so I want to thank Lee for his extra effort today.
Put a little extra in his check.
You can have that $1.
Another collection.
Special collection, just like church, right? Just like.
Respect the ones that are good at it.
Is that-
You gotta respect the ones that are good at it.
It's the county clerk's review, right?
This isn't going to go into Saturday night. Is it?
I don't even joke about it.
We've recounted several times because we have a tally of 14 for Supervisor Jankowski and 10 for Supervisor Moresi, and 1 blank piece of paper that was put in the basket. So I don't know if that person intended not to vote or if they intended to not vote for either candidate. But we do have 25, we have 25 ballots and a vote of 14 to 10 in favor of Supervisor Jankowski.
Okay, so that is the official ruling.
That would appear to be enough votes either way.
All right. Supervisor, so then I will accept a motion to cast a unanimous ballot for Supervisor Jankowski. Motion by Supervisor Moresi, seconded by Supervisor Dubek. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I will say if I'm here in 2 years from now, Larry, I might have Joan do my nomination, so. Number 15, we have a member executive operation committee. I will open it up for nominations. Supervisor Splinter.
I'm gonna steal his mic for a minute. I forgot we had to have a little bit of a speech on the nomination, so I'm kind of winging it here. But it's an easy wing because I'd like to nominate Stan Pataki. I've always thought of the executive ops committee as a bastion of our collective experiences, where those people can usually sort out any problem that comes up. And Stan has been a supervisor for over 16 years. He was a sheriff deputy for many years and the elected sheriff of Portage County for at least 4 years, I know. And I can't think of a better guy to put on to our experienced group of executive ops, and I'll let him toot his own horn here a little bit.
Supervisor Pataki.
It has been an honor and privilege to serve the citizens of Portage County for 53 years, 37 years as a law enforcement officer, including 6 years as a sheriff, and 16 years as a county board supervisor. In the last 53 years, I have seen some of the county board supervisors go from uninterested supervisors to who did not open their agenda packet until they came to the meeting, to an entire board that is well-informed to make decisions that support their constituents' wishes. I am proud to be a member of the board. I have served on the following committees: capital improvements, risk management, justice planning, highway, land preservation, public safety, emergency management, judicial general government, justice coalition, commission on aging and disability resource board, the transportation coordinating committee, and planning and zoning. I have been chairman on most of these committees, and I thank you for giving me this time to speak and ask all of you for your support. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Supervisor Weaver.
I'd like to nominate Supervisor Moresi, and I certainly don't want to try to repeat what was already stated about him.
Just say ditto. So we have Supervisor Pataki and Supervisor Moresi. Start over again. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? I will take a motion to close the hearing. So moved by Supervisor Barry Jakowski and Supervisor Syke. We're going to vote. Is there something you wanted to add?
I didn't know if you needed a second.
No.
Sorry.
Nope. We'll go to the vote. Please make sure you put something on the paper. So. We'll have to have a recount.
I was gonna say we may need a recount.
Can't even do that without controversy.
Chicago. Vote early, vote often, right? We had the one year, there was 26. Somebody two stuck together or something.
And bad luck.
There's a lot of people online tonight. Yeah. Supporters.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to report that we have 25 votes that were cast this time. 15 for Supervisor Stan Pataki, 10 for Supervisor Vincent Moresi.
Congratulations, Stan.
I need a motion to cast the unanimous ballot for Supervisor Pataki for member of Executive Operations Committee. Motion by Supervisor Don Jankowski, seconded by Supervisor Moresi. All those in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Supervisor Pataki. You'd like to say something?
Yes, just a thank you to all the people who supported me and who didn't support me. I will still do the job for you.
Number 16, the last and final member of the Executive Operations Committee. I will open it up for nomination. Supervisor Honnold.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Supervisor Moresi for this 5th position to the Executive Ops. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Supervisor Morrow.
I'd like to nominate Supervisor Dave Laddick. I didn't prepare a speech either.
Supervisor, either of the candidates like to say anything? Supervisor Moresi?
I think that I've said enough, but thank you very much.
I wanted to give you the opportunity. Supervisor Laddick, we've kind of stepped into this, so.
Sure. Thank you for nominating me. I feel I can be an asset to this Executive Operations Committee. I'll be going in my 3rd term here for the Portage County Board of Supervisors. I've been on some great committees so far, gaining experience from those assignments involving finance, the Central Wisconsin Airport Joint Board, which is joint with Marathon County, so I get some exposure there. Finance, which everything runs in finance, and I've learned a lot from Supervisor Dodge. And finally, the Justice Coalition, which kind of gave us a little exposure onto the other side of that deal. So I also have 30-plus years of business experience, plus a degree from our local university, from UWSP. I consider myself a moderate, not being a left wing or a right wing of the bird, but the middle of the bird. So my intent is always to get along with everyone and to discuss the issues positively, ask questions, listen, and above all, be respectful to others. In closing, I'm here to move Portage County forward and tackle the issues that we'll be faced with in the future. Plus, actually, with 4 other supervisors, I got perfect attendance last year. Thank you.
Do I have any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? I will take a motion to close the nominations. Moved by Supervisor Splinter, seconded by Supervisor Barry Jakowski. And we will vote.
You.
great job.
Nobody's got paid.
Times are tough.
Thank you.
I guess they do.
Mr. Chair, the results of this vote for the last member of the Exec Operations Committee are 15 votes for Supervisor Dave Laddick, 10 votes for Supervisor Vincent Moresi.
I will take a motion to cast a unanimous ballot for Supervisor Laddick. Motion by Supervisor Morrow, second by Supervisor Pataki. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And as a closing note, Supervisor Rakowski, Jankowski, Pataki, and Laddick, please stay and meet afterwards. We need to set a time for a Friday meeting for executive ops, something before noon. We have to approve the committees so that we can get it out for the 26th, which is next Tuesday when everybody's back. So, number 17, approval of March 15th, 2022 minutes. Take a motion by Supervisor Dubek, seconded by Supervisor Matt Jakowski. Any corrections, changes, or all those in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Just to remind everybody, we have 9 new supervisors, so the ones that have been here for a while, please raise your hands for firsts and seconds on some of this stuff so we can keep it moving. Presentations, number 18, Finance Director Josie, Portage County overview. For those of you who don't know, this is Jennifer Josie. She is our Finance Director.
Good afternoon or evening. Just kind of wait for the presentation to come up here. All right. Chief Deputy Clerk and I haven't practiced this, so we'll just kind of bear with us as we go through it. So this is just a general presentation on financial overview and more for you to better understand what your role as a county board supervisor is when it comes to county finances. The objectives that we're going to go through tonight is the county financial structure, the county budget process, county budget in general, and a little bit about the county financial condition we can talk about. Hopefully what you take away tonight is maybe not a lot of answers, but hopefully enough information so that you can ask questions. It's kind of hard to give a presentation on county board finances in this short of a time period, so it's going to be a broad overview that hopefully will stimulate some ideas or thoughts of questions that you're going to have at a later time as well. So what is the role of the county board supervisor related to government finance? 3 key things, I would say, that you have a fiduciary responsibility to manage public funds. to promote good stewardship of public resources and to adopt a budget. That's a critical role in the things that you're going to do in the course of a year. Good stewardship of public resources includes safeguarding of assets. So when you think about what are the questions that you would ask of how are you going to be responsible to citizens to protect the county's assets, you know, are there proper internal controls in place in the county? Do we have good policies governing our decision making? Management of those resources. Citizens entrust you to their resources to the government, to you. So you're asking yourself questions like, are we utilizing our resources efficiently and effectively for the purpose that they were intended? Are we making the best decisions to spend our resources? Are the policies in place consistently followed to ensure their proper use? So those are the things that you're thinking about. Accountability. Governments are responsible to the citizens, so the things that you want to think about is how are we keeping taxpayers informed of our decision making, and how are we reporting those their stewardship of public resources back to them? How are we being accountable to the citizens? Government accounting, we use fund accounting. Basically, it's a fiscal and reporting entity with a set of self-balancing accounts. We have multiple funds within the county that we track our resources in. Those resources and how we govern what we do in our department is regulated by GASB. We will always refer to GASB. That's the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. They're the ones that basically create the rules that are recognized by governments, the accounting industry, capital markets. That's the set of rules that everybody recognizes to say, are we following a certain set of standards and accounting principles for state and local government specifically. I get a lot of questions when people try to compare our financial statements to private business financial statements. They're not the same and they won't be. So it's very specific to government. Types of funds. We have three main types. I'm not going to talk really a lot about the third one, but we have governmental fund types, we have proprietary fund types, and we have fiduciary fund types. The last one, fiduciary, is very specific and it's used to report assets that the county is holding that really aren't the county's assets. We're holding them for somebody else in trust. Typically assets or accounts, fiduciary accounts would be things like fees and fines paid in courts because they're collected and then they're paid to other entities. We collect the municipality taxes, so we hold those for the municipalities in trust as a fiduciary, and then we give them back, and then they pay us our portion. So there's just different types of accounts that we use, and therefore holding those assets in trust. Governmental fund types. Those are basically for governmental operations. Stan's heard this before, so. Governmental fund types for governmental operations, they're typically financed by tax levy and other resources. Proprietary funds are basically for county operations that you can find in the public sector. And they're on an accrual basis of accounting, so we record those differently. Portage County fund structure. There's just a general slide of different categories of funds. The main categories in governmental funds are going to be general fund, the debt service fund, capital projects, and then we have special revenue funds. So we have major and non-major funds. Within the proprietary funds, we have categories of both enterprise and internal service, and I can explain both of those for you. Governmental fund types, the general fund. The general fund is where you're going to find most of the activity within the government. It's used to support those programs that are basically governmental activities that you won't find anywhere else. It's typically the largest fund in government. Special revenue funds. Special revenue funds are used for specific purposes. They're used to account specific revenue sources. So, for example, Health and Human Services is a special revenue fund because most of its resources are grant revenue, and within that, a lot of their grant revenues are specific for specific purposes or programs. When we receive a mental health block grant, it's used specifically for what it is outlined that we can use it for. EMS ambulance services, that's typically, that fund is directed to support the EMS program and is paid by charges and fees specifically associated with EMS and ambulance. So they have specific revenue streams, they're government activities, and that's why they're in the governmental fund, but special revenue fund. Not all special revenue funds have tax levy within the special revenue fund. We have numerous that have zero tax levy in them at all. The other thing that just to point out, I mentioned major and non-major. Typically, the characterization of a major or non-major fund has to do with its size and the type of activity within the fund. And that's usually due through tests that we do with our auditors to determine what classification they fall in for reporting. The debt service fund is used to account for resources that we're going to use to retire long-term debt obligations. The one thing that I will say about what goes in the debt service fund is any action taken by this board in order to issue debt requires a three-quarter vote of this board, and that is used to offset and pay for principal, interest payments, and any fees associated with debt issuance. Capital Projects Fund. Capital Projects Fund is used specifically for capital projects. It's only used for governmental related capital improvements. Proprietary funds have their own capital improvement streams within them because they account for capital assets. So they would not be included in this fund. For the county, capital improvements would be anything $25,000 or more, life greater than a year. Typically, we finance capital projects through debt service proceeds. We'll go out and issue debt. We sometimes use capital projects fund balance, and we will also fund it with an annual levy appropriation. But we also could receive large grants for various capital improvements. We might have shared contributions from another entity, so it all depends on the type of improvement we're doing. Proprietary funds, so as I mentioned, there's two. There's enterprise funds, there's internal service funds. Enterprise funds are typically activities that are for external users of goods and services. Internal services funds are used to provide or account for goods and services to other funds within the local government. So they exist solely because the government exists, and that is why they are providing services. So the examples I have there for enterprise funds, we have highway, healthcare, and solid waste. They all have external customers, and that's how they receive their funding. Internal service fund, I have listed information technology, health insurance, and risk management, workers' comp. So for example, the information technology services that are provided are only provided to the government departments. They're not provided elsewhere. We don't go out and provide services to the public and bill them for services. Sources of revenue and expenses. We categorize revenues and we categorize expenses. These all tie back to requirements that we have for reporting back to the state government. Sources of revenue are broken into the categories listed. Taxes, which includes property taxes, but it also includes sales taxes and forest crop taxes and a variety of other things. Intergovernmental revenues, which primarily are state and federal aids or grant payments. Licenses and permits is self-explanatory, same with fines, forfeitures, and penalties. Public charges for services and intergovernmental charges for services. The difference between the two are we charging the public or are we charging another government? So that's the difference. It's still a fee, it's still a charge, but who are we charging? And we separate that. Miscellaneous is things like interest on investments or rent or sale of equipment or property, and other financing resources could be long-term debt proceeds, transfers from other funds, fund balance applied, and other kind of categories. I included in your presentation a copy of the 2022 revenue highlights so you can kind of see where our revenues are coming from. and the percentage of each. You can see that 36% of our overall budget is taxes, and that's all those categories of taxes that I mentioned. 25 million of that is specifically operating levy, and you will hear me talk about that a lot because it's subject to a limit. And it's something that, you know, we struggle with every year. The one thing that I'll note, just because of how we report in the budget, no proceeds are separated out from other financing sources. And so I just wanted to point that out because it wasn't on the other list. The other two largest categories of revenues are intergovernmental revenues and intergovernmental charges for services. Again, we have a lot of activity doing business with other municipalities and with receiving grants and aid payments from other agencies. Expenditures by classification. Classification just kind of sorts out the type of expense. General government, again, is just basically general government activities. Public safety would include law enforcement, ambulance, emergency management. Public works would be highway, solid waste. Health and Human Services would include our Health and Human Services Department, our Aging and Disability Resource Center, veterans, culture, rec, and ed would include library, parks, UW Extension, and conservation and development would be planning and zoning. That's where we would also include economic development. Capital outlay, debt service, they're kind of self-explanatory, and I've kind of talked about them. Expenditures by object group, this is kind of the what are we buying or what are we paying for? So we sort this out into different categories as well as required. Personnel services, that's all our people costs. Contract services, those are the arrangements that we have with different vendors or different agencies for services, whether it's utilities, plumbing services, residential treatment at HHS, mental health services that we might be contracting for. That's a whole variety of services. Supplies and expenses, those are that category is the stuff category, the tangible goods, that we're purchasing, and so on down the list. Those are the largest categories. Grants, contributions, and indemnities. That category you'll find like payments that we have for non-county agencies or contributions that we make to other organizations. And cost allocations, that's more of an accounting thing that we use to account and reallocate funds, especially within our highway department. I also included for you from my budget the 2022 expenditures by classification and by type so that you can kind of see the difference. The one thing that I will point out by type, well, first by classification, as I mentioned, general government is one of the largest that you will see. Both Public Works and Health and Human Services, because of the size of those departments and the nature of those departments that are in there, those are also very large as well in comparison to the others. Expenditures by type, personnel services is $46 million roughly, and contractual services $48 million. Our county budget's $119. So that's the majority of the costs that are represented in our budget for 2022. Fund balance. There's 5 categories of fund balance. You will hear us talk a lot about fund balance. Fund balance is the difference between the net of your revenues and expenses any given year that's going to impact the funds that you have that you'll be carrying over for one year to the next. It's technically the difference between the assets and liabilities of the governmental funds balance sheet. One of the things that you will hear us talk about is we will budget for fund balance in the budget to pay for certain expenses. We use fund balance when we use equipment replacement budgets, because we will save to make a purchase in a later year, and then we will budget fund balance because we've been saving to make that purchase in a later year. So we will do that quite frequently in the budget process. The 5 categories, I think they're important to know, and we do have policy regarding them. The non-spendable fund balance is just what it is, it's non-spendable. And everybody thinks that's kind of silly when I say it, but it's to account for things like prepaid items, things that we've purchased, that we have, that need to be accounted within the balance sheet, but we're not able to spend them. It also could be things like endowments, where we've received money and they're legally restricted that we can't spend them. You know, we're able to generate interest earnings on it, and we can spend that, but we can't spend the principal that was provided to us originally. So those are non-spendable fund balance amounts. Restricted is there are restrictions imposed at an external level, an external agency level. So the state might say, the best example that I can provide quickly is jail assessment funds. We're able to receive a portion of fines that happen through the court system in the form of jail assessment payments. Those go into a fund, and we can use them for improvements on the jail. But maybe we don't have an improvement today, but we want to save that money to use it later. So that would be a fund balance that we're carrying that is restricted by another entity, and the state is what imposed through statute jail assessment funds and what they can be used for and how. So that would be an example of that. Committed, those are fund balances that are committed by this board. Late fall, I will come forward to this board and ask you to either commit new fund balances or reaffirm the commitments that we have in place. Typically, those are equipment replacement funds or canine funds or expert witness fees. You know, I can think of a variety off the top of my head where we're saying we have a designated purpose for that, and we've said we're going to only use it for that purpose, so that we've committed those funds for a said purpose. Assigned is a looser commitment. Assigned could be myself or the finance committee saying we're just going to set that aside for later, we're going to assign it for a purpose for later. And then there's unassigned, which means those are funds that are available for use. Typically, the fund balance that we have is for cash flow purposes. We use it to invest, generate investment income. There are also revenues that we use for unplanned expenditures. You know, if we had an emergency, a flood, a tornado, a public health emergency, a variety of things. You know, one thing that's currently happening, fuel prices are escalating. You know, we might have to make modifications to our budget, unexpected. So those are the purposes of those funds. There are conversations that often happen about how much fund balance should you have. It depends on the type, it depends on the category, it depends on the purpose. Fund balance is important when it comes to ratings. You know, they look at your health and your cash flow. They're going to look at the county's balance sheet and say, are you healthy, are you risk? So those things matter when those things happen. County budget. What does the county budget accomplish? It identifies in the budget process what services you're going to provide and the level of service. It's the process is outlined in statute in terms of the requirements, what we need to publish, when we need to publish, what we need to tell the public about the budget. We've also identified some specific things in our county ordinance in terms of timelines and dates. We'll talk more about that when we get closer to the budget process, and you can find the county budget on the county website if you want to go read it. I know that you're all interested, and I can give you more information if you want. The county's fiscal year coincides with the calendar year, so our fiscal year is January 1, December 31. We will start the budget process in county departments in July. We'll be talking about it generally a lot sooner, but this kind of outlines a calendar of what timeline we're going to have. October, the county executive will present the budget to this body. You will have a month to review that budget, and in October or in November, you will hold a public hearing and adopt the budget. Now, I said that real quick, but you know, the county budget is a conversation you can have any time of year. It doesn't have to fit this calendar. We're talking about the budget all the time. We adopt a budget in November, and because it's such a long process, I'll tell you, the budget that we adopt in November by that point in time, it's already changing. It's already being modified. Things are now different. They're not the same, and we're already kind of making changes. The one thing I like to tell people is remember that budget is a plan of how you're going to spend money. It doesn't always work out that way. That's why monitoring is so important. Budget amendments, we'll be talking about some of those tonight. They're a requirement in statute as well. Any appropriation to the county budget requires action of this board. In order to adopt the budget, it's a majority vote. In order to amend the budget, it's a 2/3 supermajority vote. So you have to have a 2/3 vote of this body to do this. So county budget has kind of two streams or two budgets incorporated into one. There's the operating budget and then there's the capital budget. The operating budget, if you think about it, it's a start and stop. The budget is appropriated January. At December 31st, whatever is available or in surplus or deficit is closed and you start over. The capital budget is a little bit different. It doesn't kind of stop and start. You know, when you allocate money to a capital project, it's there for the life of the project and it continues on forward regardless of the fiscal year. People tend to think sometimes of the budget as a running checkbook, and it's not. You know, your checkbook at home doesn't stop and start. I mentioned budgets require managing. We spend a lot of work at the department level doing that. There's also an oversight obligation on your part. That's why you'll see things in your packet like year-to-date budget reports to review from your departments for oversight committees or vendor invoice lists. It's an oversight function where we want committees to be involved in the process. You might not be approving everything, but it's a way to review and to see and to look and become engaged and learn about county finances. I did include a summary of the 2022 budget in your packet as well. Just a little visual of the things that I've been kind of talking about. County budget is $119 million. About 36 million is discretionary, I would say, would be the word. It's not program specific. A lot of the resources that we get are very specific. As I mentioned before, you can use it on mental health services, or you can use it on alcohol and other drug services, or you can use it on equipment specific in law enforcement. So at $119 million, that leaves not a lot to make some of those decisions on in terms of funding. Again, mentioned property taxes is about 25 million. County expenses, we talked a little bit earlier about personnel being 46.3 million, contractual services being 48.3. So, you know, it's not the levy that's paying for personnel services necessarily. I think a lot of times people have a misunderstanding about the county budget and think it's all property tax funding the services that are provided, and it's clearly not. Property tax levy, we are subject to a limit. I listed here that at 0% or it can be the greater of 0% or the change in net new construction. Net new construction is it's the difference of construction of new buildings minus changes to equalized value for demolishing or destruction of other buildings. So when we look at what we can levy, if our operating levy is about 25 million and we can increase it about 1.89%, and our wages are 46 million, when we have an increase in net new construction, it doesn't even cover the wage increase that we need to give to employees for the next year. So you can kind of see the ongoing struggle that we have when we prepare budgets and put them together in terms of what we have available and the resources to make those decisions. So the decisions that this board makes and the decisions that committees make on different budget proposals and how we lay that out is very important. There are things within the levy limit that we can make adjustments for. The two things that we do make adjustments for, and you can see this on the next slide, is for referendum, which we just passed one, so we'll be able to have an exception for referendum levy adjustment, and for debt service. So we can make an adjustment for debt service. Now, the debt service adjustment for 2023 is already set. We can't make any additional changes into it due to the referendum, so that's a little odd this year, and we can talk more about that at a later date. But those would be the two adjustments that we have on our levy limit calculation. The other categories of levy that we have for bridge and culvert aid and EMS aid levy, they are outside the levy limit, and those don't count towards that increased amount. And those we can levy as necessary or as we need for providing the services at the level that you wish. So again, that tax levy summary is just kind of an overview of the different categories of tax levy. Finance department, these are just generally all the services that the department provides. I'll just leave you with, we're available. If you have questions, please contact us. We're always happy to talk. Always happy to talk about the budget. I'm sorry I went as long as I did. I know some of you have heard this before, so I'm trying to kind of move it along. But if anything, I'm just hoping to leave you with enough information that you have a little basis and generate some thought or provoke some questions that maybe we could talk about at a later date and talk more about county finances. Thank you.
Any questions for Director Josie? Supervisor Dubek, then Supervisor Splinter.
To us?
I can, yeah. I'll give it to the Chief Deputy Clerk and he can get that out to you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Splinter.
Yeah, I just had, thank you for the overview. It's it's all encompassing. I did have a question, specific interest question, and I know they brought it up a couple months ago, but I lost track of the ARPA funds that were divvied out to each county. I don't know what our rough fund amount is, and I think it's a restricted amount. You can only use it on certain things. We can use the interest off of it for anything, but is there plans for using that, and roughly what is that? I mean, you get very few gifts from the Washington D.C., and I just wondered, I was curious how we're allocating it.
So it's okay. So we've been approving projects and we have some on our agenda later tonight to approve. I can either save it and talk about it then. The Chief Deputy Clerk has also asked me to do a presentation on it as well, which we can do at a later time, but I can give a little bit of an overview on the resolution that's in your packet for later on this evening, if that will suffice.
Yep, thank you. Supervisor Gifford, then Supervisor Pataki.
Yeah, you are a staff person, so this might not be you might not have the ideas that I'm looking for, but we as elected, do you have any ideas on how we could engage the people, the public, more in the budget process, the hearings and so forth? I know that like Health and Human Services, you can count on zero participation from the people on that. So if you have some, I don't know, big ideas or small ideas on how we could do that, I'd like to hear some.
I think a big spike in the taxes would engage the public.
There are different processes happening across the country in terms of public engagement and public engagement in the budget process. I will say it's kind of on my list as I speak with our new county executive in terms of budget priorities and in program evaluation planning and that process, because when you engage the public, you're really asking them what are the services that are a priority to you that we fund. Well, I think this is great stuff and very interesting, and you all need a basic understanding so that when I give you information, you understand how it's kind of categorized and why. It's hard to engage the public in sources of revenue and classifications of expenditures, but where you do get engagement with the public is talking about if you needed to make choices in the services that you provided in your community, what's more important to you? Does it fit in the culture, rec, and ed category? Does it fit in the public safety category? And and engaging those conversations with the public, I think would go a long way, because then it helps define for you, when you're making priority decisions on the available resources that you have, how you designate those funds to where. So
I think we've all been trying to crack that code, how to get the involvement, whether it's finance or anything else, and we've seen that over and over where we've wanted the public to come down and get the input, and it always seems like it's a challenge. So Supervisor Pataki, you were next.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to apologize to Finance Director Josie, my fellow supervisors, and the audience for my cell phone going off. What happened is I used to have a flip phone, and I used to turn the volume down. It would automatically go to vibrate. My daughters talked me into getting a smartphone. Apparently, my smartphone is smarter than I am. So I apologize.
I'm not offended, Stan, at all.
That was me that called you Stan. Supervisor Josie.
You're talking
Oh,
to
I'm sorry, Dodge. Supervisor Dodge.
Yes, I want to thank Jennifer Josie for getting me through 4 years of chairing finance. And I am hoping that Mr. Laddick learned more from you than he did from me, because he'd be in trouble. So would we all. But anyway, you can see that county finance is very complex, and after many years, there's still things that, as a supervisor, I'm not really familiar with. But I want to thank Jenny and our former county executive, who worked very, very hard on the budget for those last 4 years, as well as dispersing the federal money for the COVID business. And you've made some really good choices. And I'm really proud of all of the departments and how hard everyone worked during that time. So I guess I'd say thank you for all of us. And I'm hoping that Chris is enjoying the sun out in the field with his kids. And I hope that John enjoys being up in that little office working his stuff off. Thank you.
I would agree. I had 4 years as the chair of finance too, and as Director Josie has explained, it is a big animal, and it's up to 119 million, and we start the process in July. So it's constantly evolving, it's constantly moving, and it is a big animal. So, and again, for you new folks, if you have questions on items going forward that are resolutions, look to see who the chairs of the committees are. Reach out to them if it's a finance question. Ask those people, or give Jennifer a call at her office, and they can answer these questions as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Human Resource Director Bellinger Test, Induction to Human Resources.
Good evening. My name is Laura Bellinger-Tess, and I'm the Human Resources Director for Portage County. I've been with the county about 24 years. Of those, 22 of them as the HR Director. This is, again, just an introduction to human resources. I did pass out the PowerPoint to everybody, so you should have a hard copy. Try to go very high level. All of these, do go a lot deeper than this. But just to introduce the mission of Portage County's Human Resources is to provide effective human resource services to Portage County management, supervisors, and employees, maintain compliance with all applicable laws and regulations, which it seems like every day there's more laws that affect human resources. Every year we're dealing with something, and to administer all human resources policies and procedures. The Human Resources Department mission is accomplished through the following functions. We do still conduct labor relations with our Deputies Association. We have policy and procedure development and administration. We have recruitment and employee onboarding, and then also retention of those employees. Compensation administration, benefits administration, labor law compliance, training and education, employee relations, and performance management. So the Portage County policies that do govern the human resources functions are in the Portage County Code of Ordinances. It is section 311 in the County Code of Ordinances. I highly encourage, I put the links in here. There's just a lot of information out there, and a lot of times if you go there first, it really helps kind of help answer those questions or maybe create more questions, but there is a lot of information out there, so I encourage everybody to be very familiar with the ordinances that are online. There's the fiscal ordinances, purchasing ordinance, HR ordinances. There's just a lot of information out there for everybody. And then departments also have the department work rules that are specific to each department. So for an example, there might be a human resources policy that indicates, you know, the hours of work are, you know, of the work week are Sunday through Saturday, but a department may be able to offer flexible schedules for employees. And then each department can decide, you know, what those flexible schedules may be based on the needs of that department, because one size does not fit all with all the different variables in the county departments that we have. But Portage County Ordinances does cover these a lot more than these sections, but these are kind of the larger sections. The recruitment and selection, you know, how we go about recruiting, advertising positions, who approves the positions, position descriptions, all those type of things. Compensation, how employees are paid, a lot of different ways than just salary, you know, the overtime, the step-up pay, you know, all those type of things. Fringe benefits. We are, as a county, part of the Wisconsin retirement system, and we do help administer that, along with a lot of insurances, health, life, long-term disability, dental insurance are some examples, vacation benefits, holidays, things like that. The ordinances also covers different types of employee separations, from retirement to resignations to terminations, the employee rules of conduct. So those are all laid out also in the ordinances, you know, things that work rules, policies, and procedures. And then we also have an employee grievance procedure that is laid out, which this body is actually part of that grievance procedure. If through the appeal process, anybody can come to this to county board to appeal a grievance. In the ordinances, the positions that are covered per 311.13, the policies apply to all county positions. The Human Resources Administration, the rules and regulations are administered by the county executive and the HR director, myself. And then under 311.2, organization and administration. So we kind of lay out the responsibilities and authorities of different levels of the county government, including starting with the county board. So the county board reviews and takes actions on the amendments to the HR policies. And so you will see resolutions coming through that if there are any changes to what is in the ordinances, this body has to approve those. And then there's also county executive helps enforce the HR policies. The HR committee reviews and approves the HR policy changes before it comes to county board. The Human Resources Director and our representative, we administer all the HR policies. The department heads enforce the HR policies in a consistent and impartial manner across all departments. And then supervisory staff will implement the HR policies in their unit. And one thing that is very helpful in our department for the Human Resources Department is I know a department may call and, you know, say, like, we have this policy, this is what we want to enforce this way, but they don't see how it's maybe enforced countywide. So we'll have conversations with them about, well, this may apply for your department, but this is kind of what happens in other departments. And it is very important to be consistent and impartial countywide to make sure that all employees are treated fair and equitable. So. County personnel. So we have 28 different departments in Portage County. And approximately, I ran a report about last week, is about 680 employees. That does include on-call staff, seasonal staff, limited term staff, full-time, part-time staff. And of that, there's about 560 full-time equivalents. So full-time equivalent would be, you know, actually a 40-hour-a-week employee. So you can see 680 employees then ends up to be about 560 40-hour-a-week equivalent staff. So, and I did put in there, this is from the budget documents. as Ms. Josie had referenced. So took the same document that's in the budget document for the 2022 budget, and you can see all the different departments, and I put in the number of FTEs, so that a full-time equivalent for those departments. And like she said, those are probably changed already since November, so we might have new positions that were added or changes in hours to positions. Some items that the HR department, along with the Human Resources Committee, have been working on for the last couple of years, which has kind of been out of when in 2013 and 2016 and 2017 and 2021, the county did a countywide strategic plan. There were 4 goals that were actually identified in the Portage County Strategic Plan. And both of those strategic plans, one of the 4 goals was to attract, develop, and retain a highly skilled professional workforce. And you can see the objectives that were laid out with that goal. 2 of them that I kind of starred that we've really been hitting on are ensure competitive compensation and develop strategies for talent attraction in a labor shortage environment. And I know everybody knows that what we saw in 2013, we thought was a shortage then, really is hitting us really hard in 2022 and 2021. So the last one too is develop county policies and reporting tools for the purpose of creating an efficient workplace culture. Portage County did actually purchase an enterprise resource planning system, which we are still implementing some of those things to make things maybe a little less more paperless, to be efficient between departments, of sharing information, personnel things tied directly into finance, things that tie into purchasing things. So it's a computer system that all of us share information, which again, we just continue to be adding more modules to those type of things. So. Some human resources initiatives, some things going back to those strategic goals that we've been working on recently is in July 1st of 2021. I know the HR department and the HR committee worked very hard on revamping our vacation schedule and policy changes. Some of the things that the changes did is it reduced the number of county vacation schedules from 9 different vacation schedules that we had in the county that were administered 9 different ways down to 3 vacation schedules. It changed vacation accrual from employees used to earn vacation after they completed 1 year's service, and now employees who are hired actually get vacation on the first day. Again, trying to hit that recruitment and retention of staff. We changed the vacation accrual date from anniversary date, so that went along with after your 1 year anniversary, so you no longer, like every day somebody would be getting a different, new vacation. So now everybody in the county gets their vacation on January 1st of the year. And it also allows appointing authorities to negotiate vacation benefits for new hires. So if we were attracting somebody who had years of experience and education from, let's say, another entity, it allows us to say, okay, you were leaving there with 4 weeks of vacation, we can match that instead of saying you have to start all over at 1 week of vacation. So that was hampering our ability to bring some skilled professionals to Portage County. So we did do that in July, and it has been a very good thing. Some other things that we've been doing, and this has been an ongoing HR initiative, is maintaining competitive benefits. One thing is our self-funded health insurance plan. So there's different ways that you can provide health insurance to employees. You can be fully insured, where you're just paying an insurance company and you're just paying the premiums that they set. They make all the rules, they handle all the money, they pay out for the expenses. You are pooled with anybody else who would be with that organization. So for example, we have right now Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield as Portage County's health plan administrator. So all they do is they pay Portage County's employees claims using the money that we have here in the county. If we were fully insured with Anthem, we would actually be within Anthem's entire book of business, and our experience would be based on their book of business, and our premiums would be what they tell us based on the expenses of their entire book of business. So we have been self-insured, I think since the 1980s, I believe, and we currently The health plan has, in 2022, had a budget of $9,961,324. So that is a separate budget. Jenny had also pointed that out, and her presentation is one of those that funds for the health insurance cannot be used for anything else. And it's just used to pay claims, and it's just departments are charged and employees contribute to that and then pay out their claims. Since 2017, again, HR committee and department and employees countywide have done a really good job with our health plan. And hopefully this is also a recruitment and retention tool, and we have either reduced or maintained our health insurance premiums for employees. So we have had no increases in our health plan, and again, even reduced our premiums since 2017. So our premiums are lower today than they were in 2017. With that, we still also have a health plan reserve that we are trying to draw down. We have funds set aside that we feel are a little more than what they need to be. So we're continuing to carefully draw those down and still make sure we're staying ahead of the trend. Because I don't know if you, as you know, health insurance trend is usually up about 9 to 10% a year. So if you want to keep on top of that, people a lot of times raise their rates for 9 to 10%. So again, that's something that I think we've been doing a really good job in, and hopefully we'll continue to do. A current human resources initiative that we're working on is a salary study update. So in 2015, Portage County selected McGrath Human Resources Group to conduct a countywide salary study, which was implemented on September 11th of 2016. At that time, we had we had about 7 or 8 different wage and classification plans, again, administered many different ways. McGrath came in and she benchmarked about 250 positions in the county and came down to about 3 or 4 different salary schedules. A good practice is then every 3 to 5 years is just to have them come back, review, and make sure that your compensation schedules are keeping in line with the market, that you're remaining competitive. The HR committee in this round did approve, I think 2 months ago, to be compared with the private sector in this round of a salary study update. So that is being conducted right now. We are hoping to get results to go ahead and implement into the 2023 budget, which again, as Jenny had referenced, which means very soon. She said we start working on the budget in July, which is true. I know they come knocking on my door in June, and I say no, because the next time I look up, it's Christmas. So, so I know that's coming. But a current challenge that we do have then with the salary study update, and again, it is going along with recruiting and retaining professional and skilled staff, is, and I add it to that goal of attracting, developing, and retaining is with current economic trends and limited fiscal resources. So we started working on. We did get a group together, and hopefully with the HR committee and with other county departments and other committees and the county executive, we'll work for the 2023 budget to identify funding to implement the results of the Portage County salary study. So whatever those results come back indicating what we're going to possibly increase or have to do with our wages, we're going to have to find the funding to go ahead and do that. The current economic trends and limited resources that, I could just list, even though probably you could see it driving down the street on Division Street and all the Help Wanted signs as you're driving home tonight. But Consumer Price Index also in March 2022 is at 8.5%. The current state of Wisconsin unemployment rate is at 2.8% for March of 2022. And I'm just repeating some of the things Jenny said, and obviously what we do ties together a lot. As she mentioned, when personnel services do have an expense of $46+ million in the county budget, out of the $119 million, the limited fiscal resources we have is, as she said, the operating levy of a $25 million, which is subject to the levy limit. And, a levy increase for 2022 was 1.894%. So that does not, as she mentioned, also cover, a 2% increase countywide. So those are some of the challenges I think that we have right now. I also put our contact information on the back. We are located in the courthouse annex, which is across the street on the second floor, the same floor as the finance department. We have I have our main phone, our email, our webpage, and the staff in the department. Again, myself as the HR director. We currently have 2 assistant human resources directors, but Susan is retiring in June. So we just hired her replacement, Carrie Wojcik, and so Carrie will be the assistant HR director after June, or continue to be. Jenny Enter is a human resources advisor. We do have a human resources advisor dedicated to the healthcare center. That position is vacant right now. We were waiting for the results of the referendum, and we are currently advertising now that we know what the results of the referendum were. And Allison Mackey is our human resources associate. With that, I'll have any questions.
Any questions? Supervisor Bob Gifford.
Yeah, not so much a question as appreciating the strategic plan part, Roman numeral 4C, the talent attraction and labor shortage environment. Every other month or so, we get a forward analytics data report from Dale Knapp, and he's been talking for years now about, the demographic challenges. I would say the northern part of Wisconsin is undergoing a demographic crash. And is Wisconsin attractive to millennial generation? And I would add the next generation after that. That's a question. So, one of the biggest hot issues in this whole campaign time has been DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I stressed that a lot, when I was answering questionnaires for the election. It's not because I'm trying to be like the most woke dude running for office, but because you're going to be attracting people from outside this area, from a younger generation, which is made up 48% from communities of color, right? And you're going to have to paint a picture that looks pretty attractive to get people to move their whole, move themselves up here and get to work for us. So, yeah, I really appreciate that you've focused on that in your strategy, and I wish you well in that. I mean, I don't have anything more to add, just to recognize the problem.
Any more questions, Supervisor Rakowski?
Just want to thank Laura for her presentation, and for our new members, no test tonight.
Yeah.
But don't be overwhelmed by this. Even supervisors that have lots of years' experience come in and learn new stuff every month. Make sure you reach out to your department heads, including Jenny and Laura. They're just an encyclopedia of information for the county, and they'll help you out.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Public notices. Member of the public who wish to address the county board on specific agenda items must register their requests at this time with such comments subject to reasonable control of the county board chair as set forth in Robert's Rules of Order. Anyone from the public care to speak? Mr. Iden?
Number 24.
Number 24. Someone else had their hand up? State your name, please.
My name is Adam Majewski.
Adam Lajinski? Lajewski?
Yes, sir.
Which number? Or which item?
23.
Healthcare Service Group? Okay. Is that right, 23? Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right. 23 and 24. Number 20. Dissolution of the Portage County Safety Officer resulting in the revision of the Portage County Code of Ordinances, Section 3.1.39, Portage County Safety Officer.
Resolution number 1, 2022, 2024. Aha, thank you. Resolution number 1, 2022, 2024, submitted by the Finance and Executive Operations Committee. This resolution approves an ordinance and amendment to Chapter 3, resulting in the dissolution of the safety officer position as an appointment of the County Board of Supervisors.
Motion by Supervisor Laddick, seconded by Supervisor Moresi. Discussion. This was a position that, where's Don? Don Jankowski had held for a long time, and we feel it's more important to fold it into staff. We have had a retirement in that position, and it will kind of be an oversight to that department. Jenny?
Years ago, it was put into the staff position.
I don't know if it's still working.
In the resolution, it kind of outlines years ago, it was put into a position that was trialed out in the finance department. And as things kind of progressed, those duties kind of were absorbed into that newer position, and the safety officer as it was over time just kind of changed. And it was something that we really didn't evaluate. But yes, you are correct. The position, the risk management position that has these duties outlined in the job description is currently vacant due to a retirement as well. So we're recruiting to refill that.
Thank you. Supervisor Jankowski, did you want to say something as the past safety officer?
As you notice in the resolution, it says in 1979, well, when I went to work for Century in 1979, my supervisors recommended to the county to have a safety officer. We were the insurer at that time. Over time, that position has changed drastically from what a consultant would do to what the office staff does. And it became a repetition of the safety officer. Probably the only thing I had this last year was an incident at the recycling center where there was damage to the building. We had to make a decision, should the building be occupied or should it be shut down? So really, the safety officer position can be done by staff, probably far more efficient than it can by one of us.
I just want to add, because I don't know that anybody knows how invaluable it was to have Don be able to provide those services for years because of his background. And he just did a really great job for the county. And this resolution is not at all in a way to reflect Don's services. It was more a responsibility of what was in county staff's job, but I just really want to commend Don.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
One of the things is that we looked at is that Don does an excellent job in it, but Don's not going to be here forever, and who will fill those shoes? So we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 21. Authorizing a search and screen to fill an appointment of the office of county clerk for the residual of the unexpired 2021-2025 term.
Resolution number 2, 2022-2024. This resolution was submitted by the Executive Operations Committee. This resolution authorizes a search and screen be conducted to fill by appointment the office of the county clerk for the residue of the unexpired term.
Motion by Supervisor Rakowski, second by Supervisor Splinter. Discussion. Supervisor Rakowski.
Just a question on timeline. Do you know?
That's a Laura question. I was actually going to call her this week and ask her too, so I'm glad you asked.
I did in a high level kind of lay it out. We would probably like to recruit for 2 or 3 weeks, and then usually have a week to review applications and get people in for an interview. So timeline, it would look like we would try to target June county board for confirmation if we could get that all lined up. If not, July, because it does have to come to this board to be confirmed. So I'd really wouldn't want to wait till July, but June is probably my target. So.
Any other questions, comments? There's no other discussion. All those in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 22, out of sequence request for reclassification per human resource policy 3.11.4.6 for seasonal parks and highway positions requiring use of contingency funds and possible out of sequence new position request for seasonal highway general labor positions per human resources policy 3.11.5.1 and 3.11.5.3.
Resolution number 3, 2022-2024, submitted by the Finance, Human Resources, Parks, and Highway Committees. This resolution approves the reclassification of specified seasonal positions with corresponding wage changes in the Parks and Highway departments.
Supervisor Hano, did you raise your?
I'll move.
Okay, seconded by Supervisor Matt Jakowski. Any,
I should have also mentioned this resolution does require a 2/3 supermajority vote.
thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 23, authorizing and entering into a contract with Healthcare Service Group, Inc. for dietary services under emergency provision. And, go ahead.
Yep, resolution number 4, 2022-2024, submitted by the Healthcare Center Committee. This resolution authorizes the Portage County Healthcare Center to enter into a contract with Healthcare Services Group Incorporated for dietary services.
I'll take a motion to put it on the floor, and then we have someone that wishes to speak. Motion by Supervisor Don Jankowski, seconded by Supervisor Splinter. What's the gentleman's name? Mr. Lajewski, please use the podium, and you have, keep it within 3 minutes, please.
I'm just here on behalf of the three of us that are left in the kitchen. I've been here day in and day out taking care of that healthcare center, feeding those people all through COVID. To find out that in less than 2 weeks, I'm not going to be a county employee anymore, and I have to decide on a private company to take care of me, not knowing what I'm going to get into. I'm losing my benefits for my daughter and my wife. I can't believe what's actually happening. On a weekend, when I'm coming in, working 14 hours a day, from 5 o'clock in the morning till 7 at night, and there are 2 cars in that parking lot. One of them's a nurse, and one of them's me. And when there was 75 people there, I worked there years ago, and I came back to this place because I love that building and I love what I do. And we didn't get any help. We've had managers that have come in and have tried to do the physical work with us, but we have gotten no help from human resources. We have gotten people thrown in there that they say have experience and they have no experience. And in the end, just 3 of us are going to be out of a job. And you know what? It's not even about wage nowadays with the people that are in there. We love working for the county. We appreciate the benefits that we're offered. And we always take our responsibility, manager or not. And, you know, for this to happen, I'm looking at all you guys. This is my first time here. I probably should have been here, you know, a lot more. But it hurts. It hurts. It's just 3 of us. I don't know how much you're going to save on the budget by cutting 3 people. Okay? And on the last note, on top of that, I don't know who, if any of you guys work for a wage and come back the next day and work for a wage that's less than what you were making the day before, because that's the type of pay scale that I'm set up on. I work for a higher wage one day, and I can come in and work for a reduced lower wage the next. But my heart is for those people that are there. And I hope you guys have a heart for me. Thank you.
Any other comments? Supervisor Laddick, then Supervisor Moresi.
Yeah, I would like to ask either anybody that's on the Healthcare Center Committee to kind of justify this resolution, or maybe Director McDonald?
They're all gone.
She's here.
Well, Marcia, if you would like to add some, otherwise the committee, they're all gone,
Yep.
all 5 of them.
First of all, I'm proud to have Adam here, and as the administrator of the healthcare facility, I do have Laura, the director of human resources. Most recently, we lost our food service director. We immediately posted that position. To date, we've not had an eligible applicant. As team members, we've been banding together. One of our unit clerks, as well as our director of nursing, have been helping us coordinate the schedule to keep people coming in. Very true, Adam comes in religiously. We have not been able to fill or even begin to have an applicant. For the food service assistant positions, we've recruited diligently with Laura over the past year and a half. On occasion, we'll get an applicant. We interview them immediately. We try to hire and train them to the best of our ability. We've even had one of our activity people who was a previous cook. Laura authorized us to allow her to go in and do cooking so that we could get through Easter. We approached our committee to let them know the severity of what we're dealing with. The company that we've been talking with is very eager to make a very comparable, if not even improved, opportunity available to the few team members that are left. We have a choice of either not providing food service, which we cannot. I mean, it's a state violation. Food is critical. We've been working diligently with Cindy at the ADRC to have backup plans for some frozen meals if we couldn't get enough team to come in. And the people that have stepped forward have been CNAs, where we can, waitress, etc. We've been filling these spots. It's been heart-wrenching for me to even approach this opportunity. But working as late as 4 o'clock this afternoon with the HCSG group to talk about the fair compensation, the benefits, the employees that they will be able to help us recruit because that's their specialty. I'm speechless other than to thank Adam and the people that have been putting in hours. We have not missed a meal. This month we were able to recognize a food service team as recently as this noon to try and let them know that we're there. Whether it's waitressing, ordering, one of our unit clerks has been doing all the ordering in the interim. I asked Laura to validate the amount of energy that's gone into recruiting. We have yet to have one applicant that even began to have the qualified. We had one speedy delivery driver application which did not pass the qualifications. There are state codes that govern who can run a dietary department. I thank you, Adam, and I thank the team daily. I'm available for questions, and I know Laura has been active with us on the recruiting. The minute we get an applicant, we try and screen and interview.
Anybody have any questions for Marcia? Supervisor Moresi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director. I'm wondering, are the pay and the benefits comparable with the new private company that's coming in?
They'll be meeting. Laura's looked over the benefit package, the insurance packages. I don't feel quite qualified in the HR realm to say they're equal. The salaries would not be anything other than enhanced. They will definitely, they've given us a guarantee that they will not go down. Again, they're going to be meeting individually with the individuals. They did take over our housekeeping and laundry approximately a year ago, Laura. The employees have been extremely happy, well cared for, and they have not had staffing shortages because they have that is their expertise. They recruit and do all of their own hiring in those diligent areas. So they've run our laundry and our housekeeping in a superlative manner. In fact, the state selected to applaud them for the competencies that they've showed in the SDS and the regulatory guidelines to get us through the pandemic, because again, we could not individually fill those spots.
Supervisor Olson, you had your hand up? A comment or a question?
How confident are we that they're going to be able to provide the same level of services without the same turnover?
The research that I've done, one of my colleagues runs the Hami home up in Wittenberg. He ended up having to do this last August, and he said it's been a breath of fresh air with the employees that they've been able to recruit and bring to the team. I also, again, have the experience with the laundry and housekeeping and the management team. They have not let us down in those two departments. I do know it's not fair to continue to ask these employees to do what they're doing, to stretch as thin as they are, and to, on some days, Cindy did provide us with a backup frozen meal plan because we did not know if we were going to have enough team members. And there are certain things that cannot be done without a food service director.
I do it. I do it without having to work for a private company.
But Adam, you can only do 12 hours a day max.
I do it, and I know that the other two would do it.
But we can't run a department on 3 employees. We have no food service director, and by state law, right now we're acting on behalf of a registered dietitian who's supervising enough to get us through this critical period. I cannot have a unit clerk continue to do ordering and unload the dock, several items. So thank you for the commentary.
One of the things is in the healthcare industry is one of the highest regulations that there is. So Supervisor Barry Jakowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you also, Director. But I would like to question Adam Lazuski as to if he was made an offer by the companies coming in and how comparable it is to a county wage. I'm concerned about Adam's family and his dedication to this job, and it seems to me that we should be talking to him when they talk about what kind of offer has been made to him.
Correct. We are not legally able to make an offer until we have the opportunity to move forward. They did guarantee, and they stuck to it with housekeeping and laundry. In any event, they enhanced the wages. There was no one that worked for less, and I've worked with them now this entire period. They have not done anything other than enhance the situation. So,
Supervisor Dodge.
I guess my question was the lack of interest because the future of the county home was unknown? And perhaps that would change, and a short-term contract might be something that you would look at?
Laura can certainly comment. We've been recruiting well over a year for the positions that we've had open.
And you say Hami Home, who has been running consistently, is also having this problem?
They did. They went to contracted services last August, and the administrator, Justin Seslovich, related to me as recently as yesterday. It was the way they could continue to function. Unfortunately, I think most of you probably know now they've had to give up their SNF licenses because of other financial problems. It's a tough industry. Mm-hmm. I would not be here if we hadn't diligently been recruiting. And the staff that's been stepping in to help, I applaud them, but 3 people cannot fill a full dietary team, and the food service position is a key. It's critical. It's hard to find people who have an education and are willing to work in a nursing home with that education.
And Marcia, you do know that we all appreciate the work that you've done to hold that facility together. And run it as a 5-star facility. Yeah. So we're very proud of you.
Thank you. People like Adam, but they can only work so many hours too.
Supervisor Honnell?
So if I understand then, Marcia, this is not necessarily a cost-saving measure, this privatization. Okay.
Not at all.
Because that would concern me greatly.
No, but not at all.
Okay. Why? But how is this organization able to recruit when we're not able, when the county is not able to? What do they do that's different?
They're national. They specialize. They have well over 1,000 facilities that they work with, and they have a very aggressive recruiting program nationally. Their training program is only in food service, housekeeping, and laundry. They're not diversified with all the training we're required to do, nursing and CNAs. Their business is food service, laundry, and housekeeping.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Good question, thank you.
Supervisor Rockman?
If I could just speak to your question, Jeannie, which is actually directed to her. The concern for finding anybody,
can you please speak into the mic so the people...
The concern for finding anybody in the food service industry at present is a nightmare. If they can find people, I mean, that's wonderful. Although, Adam, I got to say, man, I've been in the weeds. I know where you're at. Like this last week, I worked a 40-hour shift because I just have nobody in my shop. Like it's
it's bad everywhere, and to assume that it might be different because it's a county position versus a private position is tenuous at best. Everybody in food service is suffering from the labor shortage, and I can't imagine, even if you were even more aggressive than you've been, trying to recruit, there just aren't people out there looking for these kinds of jobs right now. So I don't know if that helps answer the question. I don't think there is much else that they can do, and it's sad because I would rather not see the county place have to be privatized in such a way. I have my issues with privatized food service, but I can't imagine that it's going to get better anytime soon. All the demographics point to it getting worse, at least in my particular industry. So I don't know if that helps.
I just felt that everyone in Portage County at least had heard that we were going to referendum for the sake of the nursing home and keeping it. So I just wondered if that was why we were having difficulty. But you're saying actually that even if people knew that we were functioning for the next 20 years, you can't find leadership in the food industry?
I wouldn't make any predictions 20 years out in the food service
No,
industry.
I'm talking tomorrow.
I just want to add that the majority of people that actually are hired in the kitchen are hired at part-time. So if they are looking for the wage that the county is actually hiring for, they're being deceived because they're actually coming in for $4 an hour less. When they're hired as a cook, they have to come back as an aide position, and then they're put into the category of health insurance that is twice or sometimes 3 times as much as what the full-time employees are paying. So when they're there for a week or two and the part-timers realize that the insurance is unaffordable for them because they're only getting that 19 and a half allotted hours and they need to get over to that 32 month collected, they don't last.
And this is going to be a huge benefit of a nationally run company, that they can make decisions rapidly and based on what the market needs. Our HR department has done everything to judiciously watch those positions, and national company, private, can make those decisions rapidly, and because they have the corporate oversight to financially handle it, I do believe the employees are going to see some significant flexibility in being able to make a part-time position full-time or combine things. I don't know that we always have that latitude, and rightly so, being governed by a HR department that has consistency for all departments.
Supervisor Matt Jakowski.
Couple things. I realize this was a
Speak into the mic, please, sir.
sorry. My apologies. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number one, I realize this was a request for a single source purchase, a sole provider. Was there a reason that this wasn't put out for bid?
My understanding that, and I've worked closely with Chris Schultz, our procurement director, it will be put out, but on an emergency basis. He did not have the time. We are down to 0 staff for next week. We have 3 individuals on our schedule, and they did review it with our county executive. It went before our committee because, of course, it will be with the new building and the time allotment. It will be out for bid, absolutely.
Number 2 question. You talked about wages being the same. I never heard any mention of benefits.
The benefit package, I cannot comment on them. They will be presenting to them. The way I read it, Laura saw the benefit package. I can't, I guess, in Adam's eyes, compare apples to apples because their employment structure may be different. We have had numerous part-time positions. They will look at it in a different light. They have only enhanced the benefit of our laundry and housekeeping team, I can tell you that. And the employees have grown with their company because that's what they do. They work in housekeeping, laundry, and dietary. We work in healthcare, so our growth more has been in providing the healthcare service aspects, and these are subsidiary parts of the operation.
Okay.
It's not our specialty.
Then the last question I have, we only have a contract summary form in front of us, which is standard procedure here for the board. Is there anywhere in the contract that says the current employees, if retained, will be hired at a wage equal to or higher than they are at now?
I believe it is. I do know that they will be meeting with the employees and making the same job offer. I sat with them when they swung the laundry and housekeeping employees over
they had at least their equivalent, or if they were going to expand, they were offered a higher wage.
Is somebody here that knows the contract? Because that, my vote may swing on that if that's in that contract or not.
They have,
Chris is on. Chris
Chris
is up.
Schultz, would you like to make a comment?
Oh, good. I didn't
Thank
see
you.
him up there. Sorry.
thank you.
No, and I've reviewed the contract. I didn't necessarily review it from that angle. So I mean, I guess I could look. I was wanted to mainly make a comment on the sole source because of the aspect of the healthcare center being up for question as to whether we were going to continue or not. I didn't feel it was a great time to run a procurement prior to the referendum. I just did not think companies would be willing to come in. We are currently operating with this company and are happy with them doing the laundry, and there's some benefits of having them know the facility and that type of thing. That's why we chose them. Now with the referendum and stuff moving forward, we will be looking to run a procurement for those services. As far as the contract goes, I could circle back here in a minute or two. I don't recall exactly that language in the contract.
Supervisor Splinter.
I'm trying to follow this here, but we got 3 loyal employees, and I don't want them going out of here feeling like they're going to be pushed to the side. And I think I'm getting the gist that most supervisors will go ahead with this with the caveat that we protect these 3 loyal. I spell loyal with a capital L when it comes to any kind of employees, and they get my first priority. So I'm hoping that when we vote on this, we are all clear that these 3 people who have put in the extra effort, and like the man said in the back, they have their heart in their jobs, which a lot of people don't. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that before we vote.
Thank you, Supervisor Splinter, and I assure you, over the 6 years of running it through the pandemic, that the employees are at the heart of, with the residents of my employment every day. I also want to tell you that in working with the company, I've worked with this gentleman now over a year and a half. That's why I spoke also with my colleague in Hommy Home. He assured me that he had happier employees post and has grown that team. And again, I take this very personally. I take Adam very personally. We've met and been continuing to meet to try and hold the department together. I know Cindy is here. Cindy's taken my phone calls and trying to have backup frozen meals should the last 2 or 3 people just say, I don't need it anymore. There are certain responsibilities that CNAs can only do certain tasks in there. I can only do certain tasks in there. The lead cook and some of the things governed by the sanitation regulations can only be held by certain food safe serviced people, and they're hard to find. And at the food service director position, the few people that are out there that way can go to quite glamorous positions. It is sometimes very difficult to work in a skilled setting where most of it is unique diets and a different clientele that you might see in a restaurant setting. So I appreciate everyone's consideration and the employees for certain. I do believe that they're going to be very well cared for. Speaking with the company again twice this afternoon after speaking with Susan and Carrie, I believe that transition meeting is going to be very meaningful for the employees.
Anybody else? Oh boy, we got Supervisor, is that Hakala? Hakala, and then Supervisor Peterson after that.
Yeah, I'm not clear on the specifics of it, but the American Relief Fund allows for bonuses to be paid to individuals that are working in COVID-related jobs. You're able to give them additional money because of what they've gone through. Has that been looked at with the ARPA fund?
Laura's here. We have looked at different things. Jenny has. There are so many stipulations on it that it can go in a variety of ways. I do not believe it's been able to be used as bonus money. Am I correct, Jenny?
And I would say though that always gets into a tough one, because once we open that, it's where do we stop?
Yeah.
So,
And we need the people to give the bonus to. That's the hardest thing. We have a couple of 2, 3 very diligent ones, but no matter what we've tried to do as far as the enhancement of recruiting, they are not there, particularly in a skilled setting where you deal with incontinence, frequent falls, observing things. You have to have a passion to be around skilled care. It is not a glamorous work environment.
Supervisor Peterson.
I'd like to admit that my daughter did work at the care for a while she was going to school. She said it was well run with what they did have. It was very well run. I guess with these 3 employees, I guess, you know, if you would go with these services, if they would guarantee that they would have a first choice at this or guaranteed to be there.
Absolutely. That has been guaranteed.
You got to look after them that way.
That and the salary have been very well administered in the other 2 departments, and I do not believe the individual that I've worked with consistently would be telling me that at the risk of, through a procurement, certainly they're going to want to bid again, so I do not believe that they would be misleading us in any way with their food service.
But it's all job services. There's lots of people are outsourcing stuff just because of the way the society is right now, or the job market.
So I think we have a past history working with them in the laundry and what was the other one? Housekeeping. So we have a past history of them telling us they're going to do something and then them following through and doing it. I believe that, you know, the gentleman in the back and the other 2 people that are working there are a great reflection of the people that work there. And I have been there a few different times with Marcia and thanked the nurses, because it is, I believe, a thankless job as well. And they don't get enough appreciation for what they do because of the things Marcia had stated that they have to deal with. But this wasn't something that we created. It was due to resignations or staff shortages in 2 places. And again, this is very heavily regulated. They need to have the documentation and the paperwork to be able to supply the foods to the residents. And I would believe that this company, as hard as it is to find people, would be gracious to have some employees and make sure they take care of them, because they full well know that it's hard to find people that are working out there. And as Mr. Rockman had stated, in that particular industry, here they have somebody that's passionate and already good at what they're doing. So I would think that they would want to take care of those people versus trying to recruit and fill positions. So,
In fact, on a side note, one of the individuals that had resigned due to some changes they're reaching out to, and she agreed with me late this afternoon to be talking with them because of the degree of finesse that they have and what they can provide to her.
with this other company?
Yes, and
Okay.
one of our current employees, and they may be able to allow her to continue to stay where she loves to work.
Very good. Is there any other discussion or comments? If there's no further discussion, we have a motion and a second.
Thank you, everyone.
All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Nay.
Please state your name and no, please, so we can get it for the record.
Maresi, no.
Moresi, no. Anyone else?
Rockman, no.
Rockman, no.
Gifford, no.
Gifford, no.
Olkey, no.
Hackler, no.
Hackla, no.
Olson, no.
Olson, no.
Olkey.
Olkey, no. Anyone else?
Zoik, no.
Soik, no.
Keller, no. Keller.
Keller, no. Going once? So what do we got for a vote?
It'd be 18-7.
Yeses, 18 yeses. So then you have to announce that.
Based on the voice no's, we have a vote of 18 in favor and 7 no's.
Motion passes.
Motion passes.
Number 24, authorizing state and local fiscal recovery funds program projects. And I will, go ahead.
Resolution number 5, 2022, 2024, submitted by the Finance Committee. This resolution approves specified projects for inclusion in Portage County's state and local fiscal recovery funds program. This resolution requires a 2/3 supermajority vote.
Motion by Supervisor Dodge, seconded by Supervisor Gifford. Mr. Iden, you asked to speak on this?
Dave Iden. Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. I guess you mentioned that was Finance Committee who handles this. I guess just curiosity as far as some information and a little bit of a summary regarding what this is about without, I guess, too much time involved. Thank you.
Jenny?
Could I also give the summary that Mr. Splinter requested as well?
Yep.
Okay. So, the American Rescue Plan Act, when signed into law, included and established the Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund and the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund together, which make up the state and local fiscal recovery funds, which we commonly refer to now as the SLFRF program. Back in June of 2021, the county accepted the SLFR funds that were appropriated to Portage County. The county was allocated in funding $13,746,631. Those funds need to be obligated by December 31st, 2024, and need to be spent no later than December 31st, 2026. There were lots of moving parts with the federal law that established the funds. If you recall, we talked numerous times about the interim final rule. We were waiting for the final rule. The rules surrounding the funding were a little vague in terms of how they could be spent, what they could be spent for, considering their federal funds through the Department of Treasury. We wanted to ensure that the funds that were received were appropriated or obligated in a manner in which we weren't going to create any type of audit scenarios where we might have authorized funds that later, would put us in a situation which would lead to a recovery situation. I think it was, and you're going to have to, I don't have all this memorized, in January of this year, after the interim final rule was published and some initial guidance came out, I believe it was January when the final rule came out, that identified the answers to the questions that lots of states, counties, municipalities had about the use of the funding. And since then, they've revised the reporting guidance and compliance at least 4 times. So it is kind of a program that's kind of had a lot of movement. But certain things haven't changed in terms of the guidance on what the funds can be used for. The broad categories, there were 4 broad categories for use of the funds, and I'm just pulling it up so that I have it in front of me. The first broad category was to use in response to the public health COVID situation and its negative economic impacts. So funds could be used to have vaccination clinics, to do contact tracing, testing, to provide for other public health services, PPE, kind of a broad category for public health. Negative impacts, economic impacts included things like household assistance, like food programs, rent and mortgage, utility aid, eviction prevention programs, unemployment benefits, and some of these are are broad categories because this is also a state program as well. Job training assistance, education assistance, healthy childhood environments to support things like home visiting or services to foster youth and families involved in child welfare. And that fit that category. There was a category for premium pay to both public sector and private sector grants to employers. There was a section to support infrastructure, specifically for clean water and drinking water, and also broadband projects. Those were the very specific infrastructure projects that were identified. It could also be used for some administrative expenses, oversight of the program, data analysis. But the last category was revenue replacement. When the program initially came out, we had to do a comparison of what our revenues were in 2019 and then what they were actual in 2020, and then we had to project out based on some analytics that they provided us what our revenue would be going forward. And there was a calculation to determine based on what your revenue base was in 2019 and what you actually received in 2020, what your revenue loss was. We did that. When they changed all the rules, the U.S. Treasury came out and said, yeah, that's a really complicated process. Now that you've all done it once and had lots of questions, perhaps we should make this a little simpler. Now their process is you can either claim $10 million under that category for provision of government services for revenue replacement, or you can do the calculation, and we modified the calculation a bit. We, as a county, through a resolution to this board, chose to pick the $10 million exception and say, we're just going to go with that. That doesn't mean we have to spend $10 million on government services. It means we can claim up to $10 million on government services. Why that's important is in the provision of government services categories, you have the flexibility to spend that money on any government service that you normally or typically would spend those funds on as you authorize projects moving forward. It has a lot more flexibility in the services that are provided. You don't have to tie it to a COVID-specific need. It doesn't have to go towards a vaccination clinic. You could say, well, we've had an increase in crime, we'd like to hire 2 deputies, and you could do that as part of that category. So we have authorized some projects to date, which I'll point out in a second, but the first thing, or one of the first things that we did as we kind of got the program in order, because there was a lot of moving parts and a lot of moving pieces over the past year, we a few months ago brought a resolution through Finance Committee to this body to say this is what our process is going to be for state and local fiscal recovery funds, which essentially was we are going to identify that departments or other agencies can submit requests to the county. Those requests will come through the finance department. They will be reviewed. They will be reviewed by the county executive. If there is a request for personnel within the county system, they will go to Human Resources Committee, and they will also go to the governing committee of a county program or a county department as oversight for review of that project. So if it was say a rent assistance program, we might route that through the Health and Human Services Department because maybe that's the best fit, and that governing committee could review it, and we will get that support, and from there it will go to the Finance Committee for final review and recommendation to this body. So the resolution you have in your packet tonight is for 3 projects to be approved. The listing is a little longer than that because we have already to date approved some projects. The first series of projects we approved was last fall. Prior to having any of this in order, we felt really comfortable that the projects we approved last fall met the need. We didn't really have a process set up at that point, but we felt that they had met the need. They were child welfare related projects. We established some increases to staffing and approved those via resolution. I believe it was last county board meeting, in March, we approved another series of projects that were in the works, that had gone through Finance Committee in the process that I briefly mentioned, to come to this body to support. And on the attachment that's in your packet, which I'm pulling up as well, the dates of the resolutions that were adopted by this board are listed on the spreadsheet that's attached. The last three, and I apologize, but it's 2 pages of information for the projects, just because I couldn't fit it all on one sheet. And I realized the last time I provided this to the board, it was in really small print, and you probably couldn't read it very well. So I tried to make the print a little bigger and still provide you with the information. But on the second page, there is a column titled Approved by County, and it has the resolution date and the resolution numbers of when those projects were approved and the dollar amounts. So there's 3 projects on the list tonight for approval. That would include the Children's Service Society of Wisconsin, which is through the United Way of Portage County, for the Family Outreach and Support Services Program expansion. We refer to the project as FOSS. FOSS is currently funded through the Health and Human Services budget. This is an expansion to the program. It allows for 2 additional staff through that program, contracted staff to support children in the child welfare system through a home visiting type program. So the category that's referenced there would be the healthy childhood environments, services to foster youth or families involved in child welfare systems. The amount is $504,180, and that would be for the course of 2022, 2023, and 2024. The other project that is included in the packet for your approval tonight is the Portage County Life Report Data Platform Project, which is also in coordination with the United Way and Public Health. Many entities use the Portage County Life Report to evaluate trends and data within our community, so that when we target different programs or services that we will focus funding on. This is used quite frequently to kind of look at trends and where the future of the community is going. This provides a opportunity to get that report in a different platform, and the costs to do that are broken out over the next 3 years. This is an ongoing cost, and the intent of this is we're going to start it, and then it is going to be sustained in assistance with our support, but also the support of those in our community to continue that moving forward. And the last project is the Well Owner Assistance and Economic Recovery Project, known as the Water Project. That's pretty clever. And this project is to outline different testing requirements for wells and well replacements and osmosis systems for those that are not only impacted during the pandemic, but also those that need the support to make the improvements necessary to those wells and systems, tied to some of the drinking water initiatives and conversations that we've been having. This gives those folks with high nitrates an opportunity to treat or remedy those contaminants in the water through this program as well. And the things that I'm talking about, there are experts who know way more about these programs than I do, who are in the crowd, who would love to talk to you about them. But that's just kind of an overview of the program and where we're at. So with the three new projects in this program, we would have, if you approve, we would have committed just over $6.4 million of the 13.7 for this program moving forward for the county. So did that answer your question and the gentleman's question in the crowd as well?
Thank you. Any
and everybody
que-
wants me to shut
Supervisor-
up.
Supervisor Matt Jakowski, then Supervisor Gifford.
Thank you, Director Josie. I realize we're at 6.4 million. How much of that falls under that 10 million cap?
Oh,
I realize we're some of them are from other areas instead of the 6.1 provision of government services. Just my curiosity.
so you ask a great question. I have the categories in that last column. I haven't necessarily added them up here.
Oh,
But I can do it
you can
quickly.
just report back next.
Okay, so
time.
yeah,
I'm sure there'll be more.
yes, and it's on the spreadsheet. The one thing that I would like to point out to the board this evening, I did mark the water program as provision of government services because it does fit within that category. But the one thing I will share with you is it does fit the other categories as well, but there are different components of that program. And the experts, Jen and Lindsay, in the crowd, we will be meeting to break that out more specifically of what hits provision of services, what might fit infrastructure, what might hit negative economic impacts, so that we get the best allocation of the funds, so to speak. I just don't know exactly what that is and what that falls in the law. April 1st, as I said, U.S. Treasury has been issuing updated guidance. They changed the categories, and then they issued new reporting guidance on April 1st. It wasn't a joke, but they want a report done the end of this month. So in doing that April 30th report, I will understand when I'm putting the information in what will better fit those categories and be able to have that conversation with them to break it out better.
And thank you. You actually answered my second question too. So
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Gifford.
Yeah, just, we reviewed the water program and the life report in Health and Human Services, as well as the work for the ADRC at the ADRC board. And I just want to reassure everybody that this money is being very well spent on real needs that people have. I mean, if you've been following the news in the last month or so, there's no shortage in Portage of news about the well water contamination problem. And the outgoing county exec reviewed the water project with us. And this is like, this is literally infrastructure spending for households so that they can get clean water. And Jen McNally can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that most of the money will be spent for purification systems.
There's a
Help people with contamination.
There's a large portion of the money. There's also a large portion of the money that's targeted towards businesses as well.
Yeah.
So it does expand to different types of target populations. The one thing that Supervisor Gifford also just said that I would like to take the opportunity to point out is he mentioned ADRC. That's not in this picture. That's not part of this funding. And Finance Committee has heard me say it a million times. They're probably sick of it, but ARPA funding is not just this. We receive ARPA funding in many different pots and many different forms. This specific, and people want to call this ARPA, this is State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds program money specifically. ARPA has allocated money to many grant programs. ADRC has received specific money in ADRC specific to Older Americans Act funding programs. HHS has received specific ARPA money specific to their programs, and it's coming in a lot of different pots in a lot of different places, a lot of different departments. So this one is very specific to SLRF.
Oh,
And
sorry,
so,
I missed.
no, that's okay. I'm just trying to use it as an educational moment that when people talk about this money, they don't call it ARPA money. It's specific. It has specific rules. It has specific guidance. It has specific requirements. They are not all the same. Like the premium pay, and I think one of our supervisors asked a question earlier. The rules are different for all of them. It depends on the funding source. We have provider relief funds at the healthcare center. We have, state and local fiscal recovery funds. We're getting them through mental health block grant, APS funding. It just depends. It's all different.
Supervisor Orca.
Thank you. Given I think I heard you say the monies need to be expended by 2026, but I also think I heard you say the word sustainable or Correct. sustainability. So what is that vision, or once the money is? So one of the things that we've talked about as part of how to evaluate programs that are coming to Finance Committee is we want to make sure that we're leaving Portage County in a better situation than we started. If these monies are helped to improve and make changes to the negative economic impacts, we don't want to create another negative economic impact when the money's pulled away and we can't sustain the things we put in place. So the one program I was referencing is the United Way Life Report digital platform. And again, when that project ends and our contribution ends, the intent is that project will be sustainable in the future. And United Way is working tirelessly to make sure that there is specific donor structure in place, so then what we're done with our work and setting it up, that it has a future beyond us, because we're not always going to be able to write the check. So that is a huge part of, the long-term look at how we spend this money. I made the reference, provision of government services, we can fund 2 deputies, that's great. Well, what are you going to do when you have to pull the money? You're just going to take them off the road? We just talked about the budget, where we're going to pull it from. So we need just to be smart in our decision making. The other thing that I would, I just lost it. It'll come back. Sorry, it was really good.
We'll wait. With the ARPA money, one of the things that we haven't talked about was broadband. The state of Wisconsin and the governor and the rest of them have so much money, millions of dollars they've put towards the broadband, that we wanted to make sure we held back on that purposely, just because we thought that the state of Wisconsin had such a strong initiative in it that we could use these monies towards other things instead of putting it towards something that the state may cover. That gives us opportunities to use this money in a different area. Did it come back, Jen?
No.
Anybody else have any questions for Jen? We're pushing 3 hours, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Most of it was you.
Yes. Do you have enough to get us to double per diems is what I want to know.
It's not like this every board meeting, just tonight. And budget.
Okay, thanks, Jen. If it comes to you, just blurt it out over there. So, all right. We have a motion and a second on this. We did not take a vote, correct? I'm losing where I was. So if there's no further discussion on this item, find where it is, number 24, authorizing state and local fiscal recovery funds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 25, authorizing 2022 budget amendments and transfers.
Resolution number 6, 2022-2024, submitted by the Finance Committee. This resolution approves specified budget amendments and transfers. This resolution requires a 2/3 supermajority vote.
Motion by Supervisor Rakowski, seconded by Supervisor Moresi. Discussion. All those in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Supervisor Dubek, seconded by Supervisor Laddick. All in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.